The Great Hall of Nexus Prime was the largest structure ever built by any species in the known galaxy. It floated in the empty space between 3 star systems, and its walls were made of crystal that had taken 200 years to grow. Inside, representatives from 347 different civilizations sat in rows that stretched so far back that some delegates needed telescopes to see the central stage. High Chancellor Vorik stood at the podium. He was tall, even by the standards of his insectoid species, and his forearms moved with practiced grace as he adjusted the speaking device around his throat. Behind him, a massive screen displayed the spinning blue marble of Earth, the homeworld of humanity. "Hello, members of the Galactic Council," Vorik began. His voice translated into thousands of languages simultaneously. "For too long, we have tolerated the arrogance of the Terran Republic. They expand without permission. They trade without paying our taxes. They ignore our laws and laugh at our treaties." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the hall. Many species had complaints about humans. They were loud. They were strange. They kept pets that could kill them. They ate foods that were technically poison. They refused to follow the proper procedures for anything. "Today," Vorik continued, raising all 4 arms dramatically, "we say, enough. Today, the Galactic Council formally declares war upon the Terran Republic. We will bring them to their knees. We will force them to submit. And we will show the galaxy that no species can defy the Council and survive." The hall erupted in cheers. Flags waved. Weapons were raised in salute. The vote had passed with 93% approval, the highest margin for any military action in Council history. Within hours, the Grand Fleet began to mobilize. 40,000 warships from dozens of species gathered at the border of human space, their weapons charged and their crews eager for glory. The declaration was broadcast across all known frequencies, in every language, to every corner of the galaxy. It was the most significant political event in 3 centuries. On Earth, it arrived during a Tuesday afternoon. Admiral Una Park was sitting in her office at the United Earth Defense Ministry in Seoul when her computer made a small beeping sound. She glanced at the screen, saw that it was a message from the Galactic Council, and returned her attention to the budget report she was reading. The Defense Ministry was requesting new chairs for the break room, and she needed to decide between the leather ones and the fabric ones. 5 minutes later, she remembered the message and opened it. She read it once, then read it again. Then she leaned back in her chair and said a word that would have made her grandmother very upset. "Commander Kong," she called out. Ji-hoon Kong appeared in her doorway. He was a young man with tired eyes and a coffee stain on his uniform that he had been trying to hide all morning. "Yes, Admiral. The Galactic Council has declared war on us." Ji-hoon blinked. "I'm sorry, did you say war?" "That's what the message says." Una forwarded it to his tablet. "Add it to tomorrow's briefing. Low priority. Somewhere between the cafeteria menu changes and the Peking situation." Ji-hoon stared at his tablet, his mouth hanging open. "Admiral, with respect, shouldn't this be urgent?" Una considered this for a moment. She had served in 3 different conflicts during her career. She had seen humanity fight itself over borders, resources, and once over a football match that had gotten severely out of hand. She had commanded ships against pirates, rebels, and one very angry mining corporation. In all her years, she had learned one important truth. Panic helped no one. "Have they crossed our borders yet?" she asked. "No, Admiral." "Have they fired any weapons?" "No, Admiral. Then it's not urgent. It's just paperwork with extra steps." She turned back to her budget report. "Besides, it's almost lunch. I'm not declaring a state of emergency on an empty stomach." 6,000 light-years away, Ambassador Hannah Choi was lying on a beach on the resort planet of Valoria. She had worked for the Terran Diplomatic Corps for 22 years, and this was her first vacation in 3 of them. The sand was purple. The water was warm. A small robot was bringing her drinks with little umbrellas in them. Her communication device buzzed. She looked at it, saw the words Galactic Council Urgent, and pressed the button that sent an automatic reply. The reply said, "Thank you for your message. Ambassador Choi is currently unavailable. Your concerns are important to us and will be addressed upon her return. Estimated response time, 2 weeks. Then she put the device back in her bag, took another sip of her drink, and watched the twin suns set over the ocean, back on Nexus Prime. Chancellor Vorik waited for humanity's response. He expected panic. He expected pleas for mercy. He expected, at the very least, some acknowledgement that they understood the gravity of their situation. Instead, he received an automated message in silence. They are frozen with fear, one of his advisors suggested. They cannot even form words. Perhaps their communication systems have failed, another offered. They are a primitive species, after all. Vorik nodded slowly. These explanations made sense. Humanity was young and small and weak. They had only been traveling between stars for a few centuries. They had no great fleets, no ancient weapons, no alliances with elder species. Of course, they were afraid. Begin the advance, he ordered. Let them tremble as our ships darken their skies. The Grand Fleet moved forward, crossing into human space with weapons ready and victory assured. They expected resistance. They expected fear. They expected the desperate last stand of a doomed species. They did not expect Captain Sunwoo Lee and his freighter full of cabbages, who would become the first alien-human contact of the war, and would change everything the Council thought they knew about the strange, stubborn species called humanity, but that is a story for another time. 3 weeks had passed since the declaration of war, and Fleet Commander Draxus was beginning to feel that something was very wrong. His flagship, the Eternal Judgment, led a formation of 40,000 warships through human space. They had crossed 3 star systems. They had passed 17 human colonies. They had encountered hundreds of human vessels. Not one of them had fired a weapon. Not one of them had fled in terror. Not one of them had even seemed particularly concerned. Draxus was a veteran of 6 campaigns. He had conquered rebellious worlds and crushed pirate fleets, and once held a defensive position for 40 days, against overwhelming odds. He knew what war looked like. He knew what fear looked like. This looked like neither, Commander, his sensor officer reported. We are approaching another human vessel. A cargo freighter, lightly armed. They are continuing on their original course. Intercept them, Draxus ordered. I want answers. The Eternal Judgment moved to block the freighter's path. The small human ship slowed and stopped, and a communication channel opened. On the screen appeared a human male with gray hair, a round face, and an expression of mild curiosity. Hello there, the human said. Is there a problem? I have a delivery schedule to keep. Draxus leaned forward in his command chair. I am Fleet Commander Draxus of the Galactic Council Grand Fleet. You are in the middle of a war zone. Why are you not fleeing? The human scratched his chin. War zone? Oh, right, that thing. I think I saw something about it on the news a while back. He shrugged. Between the weather report and the football scores, you know how it is. Draxus did not know how it was. His species did not have weather or football. What is your name, human? Sunwoo Lee, captain of the Happy Cabbage, hauling agricultural equipment to the outer colonies. Sunwoo smiled. Good cabbages this season. Would you like to buy some? I do not want your cabbages, Draxus shouted. I want to know why your species has not mobilized its military. We have declared war. We have invaded your territory. Why does no one care? Sunwoo thought about this for a moment. Well, he said slowly, I guess it's because you haven't really done anything yet. You're just sort of floating there. It's like if someone stood outside my house and yelled that they were going to fight me, but then just kept standing there. Eventually, I'd stop paying attention and go back to watching my shows. Draxus felt his left eye twitch. We are not standing. We are advancing. With weapons. Sure. Sunwoo nodded in a way that suggested he was not really listening. Anyway, do you want some coffee? I just made a fresh pot. You look like you could use some. Before Draxus could respond, Sunwoo transmitted a small package through the ship-to-ship delivery system. It materialized on Draxus's console, a sealed container of hot brown liquid and a small cup. Human custom, Sunwoo explained. When strangers meet, we share a drink. It's polite. Draxus stared at the coffee. His science officer scanned it and confirmed it was not poisonous, at least not to their species. Slowly, reluctantly, Draxus poured himself a cup and tasted it. It was bitter. It was strange. It was somehow exactly what he needed.
This is
acceptable, he admitted. Right. Glad you like it. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have cabbages to deliver. Good luck with your war thing. Sunwoo waved cheerfully, and the happy cabbage continued on its way. Draxus watched it go. Then he turned to his communications officer. Send a message to Chancellor Vorik. Tell him we have a problem on the Council homeworld. Vorik received the message along with several hundred intelligence reports, all telling the same story. Human infrastructure showed no signs of military preparation. Their factories were producing consumer goods, televisions, furniture, children's toys. Their entertainment networks were broadcasting sports events, cooking shows, and celebrity gossip. The biggest news story in human space was not the invasion. It was a scandal involving a pop star named Minji, who had apparently said something rude about another pop star's haircut. The humans were very upset about the haircut comment. They were not upset about the 40,000 warships in their territory. This makes no sense, Vorik muttered, reading the reports again. They must be planning something. A secret weapon. A hidden fleet. Something. His chief intelligence officer, a small reptilian creature named Vesic, shook his head. We have found nothing, High Chancellor. Their military is conducting routine patrols. Their government officials are attending budget meetings. One of their admirals spent yesterday arguing about chairs. Chairs. For a break room, apparently. It seemed very important to her. Vorik felt a cold sensation spreading through his body. It was not fear exactly. It was something worse. It was the feeling of a predator realizing that the prey was not running because the prey was not afraid. And prey that was not afraid was either stupid or dangerous. Humanity was many things. Stupid was not one of them. What do they know that we don't? Vorik whispered. No one answered. No one could. Across the galaxy, Admiral Unipark finally finished her budget report. She approved the fabric chairs because they were easier to clean. Then she opened a new file and began drafting a memo about the Galactic Council situation. It was a short memo. It contained 3 main points. The Council had declared war. Their fleet was moving slowly through human space. And there was no reason to panic because panicking never helped anyone. She sent the memo to the relevant departments with a note that said, "Handle at your convenience." Then she went to lunch. The cafeteria was serving her favorite soup, and she had been looking forward to it all morning. War could wait. Good soup could not. The colony world of New Busan was a pleasant place. It had green hills, blue oceans, and a population of 3 million humans who had built their cities to look like the homeland they had left behind. The capital city was named after Seoul, and its streets were lined with restaurants, shops, and parks where children played. Governor Doyen Shin was having a difficult morning. But not because of the alien fleet in orbit. His difficulty was much more serious. The Harvest Festival was in 2 weeks, and the Decorations Committee could not agree on a color scheme. Governor, his assistant said. Entering the office, the alien fleet is requesting communication. Doyon looked up from his tablet, which displayed 3 different proposals for banner colors. The aliens? What do they want? They say they are going to demonstrate their military superiority by firing upon our planet. Ah. Doyon nodded slowly. Well, tell them to aim for the empty fields outside the city. We don't want them hitting anything important. His assistant blinked. You want me to? Give them targeting suggestions. It seems polite. They've come all this way. Aoyan returned to his tablet. And make sure they know about the festival. Maybe they'd like to attend when they're done with the shooting. In orbit, Fleet Commander Draxus received this message and felt his sanity slipping away. Piece by piece. They gave us coordinates, his weapons officer reported, sounding confused. They told us where to shoot. This is a trap, Draxus said immediately. It must be. Scans show nothing unusual. The coordinates lead to an empty agricultural field. No military installations. No hidden weapons. Just dirt and grass. Draxus considered his options. He could ignore the humans and attack somewhere else, but that would make him look weak. He could demand their surrender, but they would probably just offer him coffee again. Or he could accept their strange invitation and demonstrate, once and for all, the power of the Galactic Council. Target the coordinates, he ordered. Single beam, maximum power. Let them see what they face. The Eternal Judgment's main cannon charged. It was a weapon designed to crack planetary crusts and boil oceans. It had destroyed 12 worlds during the Council's long history. It was the most powerful weapon in the Grand Fleet. The beam fired. A line of pure white energy descended from orbit, moving at nearly the speed of light. It's carrying enough power to vaporize a mountain. It struck the field. Nothing happened. Draxus stared at the display. The grass was still there. The dirt was still there. A small bird flew across the target zone, completely unharmed. Report, he demanded. A beam was absorbed, the weapons officer said, his voice shaking. Some kind of energy shield. It dispersed our attack completely. That's impossible. Our weapons can penetrate any known defense system. It appears the humans have an unknown defense system. Commander. Below, in the physics department of New Busan University, Dr. Yunji Wang looked up from her research as her instruments registered an unusual energy reading. She analyzed the data for a few minutes, then smiled and composed a message to the alien fleet.
Oh.
Dear visitors, she wrote, I noticed your energy weapon was absorbed by our atmospheric shielding. This is a very old system that we installed when the colony was founded. It is designed to protect against solar flares and asteroid impacts. I am afraid your weapon did not meet the absorption threshold. If you wish to make a visible impact, you would need approximately 47 times more power. I have attached the technical specifications for your convenience. Best wishes, Dr. Yunji Wang, Department of Applied Physics. Draxus received this message and read it 3 times. She is helping us destroy her planet, he said slowly. It would appear so, Commander. Why would she do that? No one had an answer. Draxus made a decision. All ships target the same coordinates. Full fleet bombardment. Everything we have. 40,000 warships turned their weapons toward New Busan, cannons charged. Missiles armed. Every beam, every projectile. Every piece of destructive force in the Grand Fleet pointed at one small spot on one small world. They fired. The sky above New Busan turned white. Energy beams and explosions filled the atmosphere like a second sun. The ground shook. The air screamed. For 30 seconds, enough firepower to destroy a dozen planets focused on a single point. When it ended, the field was still there. The grass was perhaps slightly warm. Dr. Wang sent another message. Interesting. You were close to the threshold that time. A few more fleets, and you might leave a mark. Would you like me to suggest some modifications to your weapons? I have some free time this afternoon. In his office, Governor Shin looked out the window at the fading light in the sky. His assistant stood beside him, equally calm. That was quite a show, Shin said. The children seemed to enjoy it. Indeed, Governor. Some of them thought it was fireworks. Speaking of which, has the decorations committee decided on colors yet? Blue and gold, sir? They reached a compromise. Excellent. Shin returned to his desk. Now about the festival food vendors. We need to discuss placement. In orbit, Fleet Commander Draxus sat in silence. His weapons were useless. His fleet was powerless. Everything he had been told about humanity was wrong. They were not primitive. They were not weak. They were simply so advanced, so far beyond the Council's understanding, that they did not consider this attack worth noticing. For the first time in his long career, Draxus felt something he had never experienced before. Genuine fear. And somewhere in the Grand Fleet, crew members who had intercepted human entertainment broadcasts were beginning to ask uncomfortable questions. The humans had sports they could watch, music they could hear, stories they could enjoy. The Council had only war. Some of them were starting to wonder if they had chosen the wrong side. Chancellor Vorik had not slept in 6 days. The reports from the front lines were impossible to understand. The Grand Fleet had failed to damage a single human colony. Their weapons were useless. Their threats were ignored. And strangest of all, the humans still had not mobilized their military. "I want answers," Vorik demanded, slamming his 4 fists on the council table. "I want to know everything about these creatures. Their history, their technology, their weaknesses, everything." The council's intelligence division worked without rest. They gathered every piece of information ever collected about humanity: their broadcasts, their records, their art, their literature. They translated texts from dozens of human languages. They studied human behavior across centuries of history. 3 days later, they delivered their report. It was classified at the highest level. Only senior council members were allowed to read it. And within hours of its completion, someone leaked it to the public. The result was panic on a scale the galaxy had never seen. The report began with basic facts. Humanity had evolved on Earth, a planet that seemed determined to kill them. The gravity was strong. The weather was violent. The other animals were dangerous. In one memorable passage, the report noted that humans had domesticated wolves, one of their planet's most effective predators, and turned them into companions. They called them dogs and let them sleep in their beds. But the truly disturbing information was about human history. Humans had fought themselves constantly, not once or twice, but continuously, for thousands of years. They had wars over land, wars over religion, wars over resources, wars over ideas. Sometimes they had wars for reasons they could not even explain afterward. They had invented weapons of terrible power and used them on each other. The report included images of something called a nuclear bomb, which humans had created specifically to destroy cities filled with other humans. They had used it twice, and instead of abandoning the technology in horror, they had built thousands more. Their planet's atmosphere had once caught fire because of their industrial pollution. They had survived. Their oceans had become acidic. They had adapted. Diseases had killed millions of them at a time. They had developed medicine and continued. The report included a section on human entertainment, which was perhaps the most disturbing part of all. Humans created stories about death, destruction, and disaster for fun. They watched recordings of themselves fighting each other. They played games that simulated war. They found violence entertaining. One intelligence analyst had added a personal note at the sequel. End of his section. "I have studied many species. I have never encountered one that treats its own extinction events as learning experiences and its most destructive capabilities as casual achievements. I recommend immediate withdrawal from human space. These creatures are not normal." The report concluded with a simple assessment. Humanity did not view the Galactic Council as a threat, because they had endured far worse. To them, 40,000 alien warships were not an invasion. They were a minor inconvenience, somewhere between bad traffic and an unexpected rain shower. Across the galaxy, species that had considered themselves advanced and powerful read the report and trembled. The humans had burned their own sky and kept going. They had poisoned their own water and adapted. They had split atoms and used the resulting explosion to generate electricity for their homes. What could the Council possibly do to frighten creatures like that? On Earth, Admiral Unipark finally scheduled her briefing about the war. It was now 6 weeks since the declaration, and she felt it was probably time to discuss it officially. The meeting room contained 4 people: Admiral Park, General Taman O of the Ground Forces, Fleet Commander Wujin Beek of the Space Navy, and Defense Minister Sujen Ryu. "Thank you all for coming," Park began. "As you know, the Galactic Council declared war on us recently. Their fleet has been moving through our space and attempting to damage our colonies without success." "What assets have they deployed?" General O asked. "Approximately 40,000 warships of various classes, and their weapons' effectiveness." "0. Our standard atmospheric shielding has absorbed everything they've tried." There was a moment of silence. Then Fleet Commander Beek laughed quietly. "They brought energy weapons against atmospheric shielding. That technology is 300 years old. In fairness, Admiral Park said they didn't know about it. We never thought to tell them. Defense Minister Rue leaned back in her chair. What's our recommended response? I suggest we delegate this matter to the Frontier Patrol. They handle minor disturbances, smugglers, that sort of thing. 17 ships should be more than enough. Howard, 17 ships against 40,000. Their 40,000 can't scratch our colonies. I don't think quantity is the relevant factor here. The meeting lasted 12 minutes. At the end, everyone agreed that the situation was under control and required no significant action. General O mentioned that he had a dinner reservation he didn't want to miss. Fleet Commander Beek said his daughter had a school performance that evening. Defense Minister Rue nodded approvingly at their priorities. Any other business? Admiral Park asked.
No, the cafeteria's changing soup suppliers. General O said.
I wanted to register a complaint. Noted. I'll look into it. The meeting ended. The most powerful military leaders in human space went about their regular lives, completely unconcerned about the alien invasion happening in their territory in his chambers on Nexus Prime. Chancellor Vorik read the intelligence report for the 20th time. His hands were shaking. His confidence was gone. He had declared war on a species that had survived everything their universe had thrown at them. A species that considered extinction-level events to be historical footnotes. A species that kept predators as pets and made entertainment out of destruction. For the first time, Vorik understood the truth. The Council had not declared war on humanity. They had merely attracted humanity's attention. And attention, from creatures like these, was a very dangerous thing. The Frontier Patrol arrived at New Busan on a quiet Thursday morning. There were 17 ships in the formation, each one a mid-sized cruiser designed for peacekeeping operations. They were not battleships. They were not destroyers. They were the kind of vessels humanity used to chase smugglers and rescue stranded miners. Captain Hanyul, you commanded the lead ship. The Steady Wind. He was 63 years old, with gray hair and calm eyes that had seen too much to be surprised by anything anymore. In his youth, he had served in 3 civil conflicts on Earth. He had held a defensive position for 18 hours with nothing, a sidearm and a thermos of tea. He had learned patience the hard way. Open a channel to the alien fleet, he ordered. The communication connected. On his screen appeared Fleet Commander Draxus, who looked like he had not slept in weeks. Hello there, Captain, you said pleasantly. I'm Captain Hanyul Yu of the Terran Frontier Patrol. I noticed your ships have been parked in orbit for quite some time. Is everything all right? Draxus stared at him. The human's tone was the same one might use when asking a neighbor about their car blocking the driveway. We are the Grand Fleet of the Galactic Council, Draxus said slowly. We are here to conquer your species. Yes, I read about that. How is it going? Draxus opened his mouth, then closed it again. How was it going? His weapons were useless. His fleet was demoralized. 17 of his ships had already defected after their crews discovered human entertainment broadcasts and decided it would rather watch something called cooking competitions than continue the invasion. Morale had collapsed. Supplies were running low. His officers had started asking uncomfortable questions about why they were fighting a species that had never actually attacked them. Not well, Draxus admitted, Captain. You nodded sympathetically. That happens sometimes. War is difficult. Our weapons cannot penetrate your defenses. They are good defenses. Your people do not even seem to notice we are here. You're busy. People. Draxus felt something break inside him. It might have been his pride. It might have been his sanity. He was no longer sure there was a difference. What do you want? He asked quietly. What do we have to do to end this? Captain, you considered the question carefully. He had fought in enough conflicts to know that revenge helped no one. He had lost friends to violence and learned that hatred only created more hatred. He had become old enough to understand that the best victories were the ones where nobody died. I think he said slowly that what we need is a conversation. 3 hours later, Captain Yu's shuttle landed in the Eternal Judgment's docking bay. He stepped out alone, carrying nothing but a small bag and his thermos. She had refilled before departure. Draxus met him personally, along with a dozen armed guards. The human did not seem to notice the weapons pointed at him. "Shall we walk?" you asked. "I find it easier to talk while walking." They walked through the corridors of the massive warship. Crew members stopped to stare at the strange human who had casually boarded their vessel. Some of them whispered. Some of them looked away. "Your ship is very impressive," you said. "How many crew members?" 12,000. That must make logistics complicated. Feeding everyone, managing shifts, handling disputes. Draxus found himself nodding. "It is challenging. I commanded a vessel with 800 crew once. Even that was difficult. But you learn. You find ways to make it work," you smiled. "That is what intelligent beings do. They adapt." They reached an observation deck that looked out at the stars. Below them, the blue and green world of New Busan turned slowly. "Beautiful, isn't it?" You said. 3 million people down there? Farmers, teachers, shopkeepers, children playing in parks. Old people telling stories. Ordinary lives going on as normal. We tried to destroy them. We tried. You failed. That is done now. You turned to face Draxus. "The question is, what happens next?" "The Council will be furious. They will demand we continue fighting." The Council declared war based on misunderstanding and fear. They thought we were weak because we were different. They thought our refusal to follow their rules was defiance rather than independence. Yu's voice was gentle. "We do not hate you, Commander. We are not angry. We are simply people who want to live our lives in peace." "Is that so different from what your people want?" Draxus thought of his homeworld. He thought of his family, who had sent him messages asking when he would return. He thought of the young officers under his command who had joined the military seeking glory, but had found only confusion. "What are you offering?" He asked. "Conversation," you repeated. "Dialogue. Understanding. The Council and humanity have never really talked to each other. We sent ambassadors who filed paperwork and attended ceremonies, but we never sat down and simply communicated." Word. He opened his thermos and poured 2 cups of tea. "Would you like some? It helps with difficult discussions." Draxus took the cup. The tea was warm and slightly bitter, with a taste he could not identify. "This is called green tea," you explained. "Humans have been drinking it for thousands of years. We believe it promotes calm and clarity." They stood in silence, drinking tea and watching the stars. 3 months later, Chancellor Vorik traveled to Earth personally. The peace treaty signing was held in Seoul, in a building that had been destroyed and rebuilt 7 times during human history. Ambassador Hannah Choi, freshly returned from her vacation, greeted him at the entrance. "Welcome to Earth," she said warmly. "I hope your journey was pleasant." Vorik looked around at the human city. People walked through streets lined with trees. Children rode bicycles. Somewhere nearby, music was playing. There were no soldiers. No weapons. No signs that this species had ever known war. But he had read the reports. He knew that beneath this peaceful surface was a history written in blood and fire. He knew that these calm, smiling people had survived things that would have destroyed any other species. "Thank you for having us," he said carefully. The treaty was signed. Humanity joined the Galactic Council not as a subordinate member, but as a senior partner. Their membership fees were waived permanently. Their independence was guaranteed. In exchange, they agreed to share certain defensive technologies and to accept diplomatic missions from curious species. Afterward, a reporter asked Admiral Unipark how humanity had remained so calm during the crisis. Park thought about the question for a moment. She thought about her ancestors, who had survived wars and famines and disasters. She thought about her parents, who had rebuilt their lives after losing everything. She thought about the long history of her species, which had faced extinction again and again, and had always refused to die. "We've had worse Mondays," she said simply. The reporter did not understand. That was fine. Humanity had stopped expecting others to understand them long ago. In the archives of the Galactic Council, the original declaration of war was quietly reclassified. Its new designation was Administrative Error, Do Not Reference. And somewhere in the outer colonies, Captain Sun Wu Li published a memoir about his encounter with the Grand Fleet. It became a bestseller across 12 star systems. He used the profits to buy more cabbages. Some things he had learned were more important than war.